Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HBR Minute HCI podcast episode, I explore the recent HBR video, Does Virtual Presence Still Matter at Work? Welcome back to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. It's great to be with you again today for this HBR Minute HCI podcast episode. Today I'll be exploring the recent HBR video, Does Virtual Presence Still Matter at Work? After a year of remote working and spending most of our waking hours glued to video calls, what have we learned? Many of us have been working and living from home for over a year, and our days are spent being camera ready for video calls and virtual events. We've been doing this so long that Zoom fatigue is all too familiar. At this point, does virtual presence still matter? In this HBR episode, Christine speaks with returning guest expert Rachel Kassar, a former Boston Ballet dancer turned professional presence coach, about real steps to improve virtual communication and professional success. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you on the flip side of this first clip.
My life right now is just video meetings. You know, you have this pressure to be camera ready. Like you're on the screen for meetings all day at work. And then even after work, you gotta look presentable for your friend call or, be alert for your family call. Actually, there's intense pressure to be camera ready. Back when this all felt new, I actually pointed the camera at myself and recorded a time capsule. Some predictions I had were not correct.
So the latest we have officially is that the office will be closed for 4 weeks, but my best estimate is that it probably will be closer to 2 months.
Not long after I filmed that time capsule, we started production on the very first episode of Christine versus Work. That was when we were shooting this on my phone, and the Wi-Fi is like, I don't know, everything looks I look weird. My hair's so short. And in that episode, I talked to Rachel Kassar. She's a former Boston Ballet dancer turned professional presence coach. And I'm like, well, what are the tips? How am I supposed to carry myself on these video calls?
You don't have to be stoic, non-moving robots. It's not interesting.
Here we are a year later, and I'm wondering, does virtual presence still matter? Probably yes, but as we've been in video calls and meetings and been fatigued all this time, it's like, I think my standards have been slipping a little bit. We are all video stars in our meetings now. Question is, how do we make the most of our on-screen time?
I'm sure we can all relate to this. Way back last March 2020, right as lockdown procedures were being put in place and people were wearing masks and everyone started working from home and kids were doing school from home, we all had different views on how long the whole pandemic would play out. But I don't think many people, maybe anyone, really thought that a year later we would still be mostly in the same situation. Now, obviously now things are better. People are getting vaccinated. The case numbers are going down. And it looks like we actually do have a light at the end of the tunnel at this point. But I think back then, back in March 2020, people were hoping, that by summer things would clear up and that we would be in good shape. And that just didn't happen. And so as she mentions, I think most people's predictions about how the pandemic was going to play out didn't really come true. It ended up being a much longer haul than most of us thought. And because of that, organizations really did have to pivot and move to online virtual work, not just for a really short period of time, but for a long, extended period of time, for a year. And so many organizations have decided that they're going to continue and allow people to work remotely, or at least adopt some sort of a hybrid approach to the workforce so that people can work and get the benefits from the flexibility of virtual work while also still coming into the office sometimes. With all of this, though, of course, a big part of virtual work is virtual meetings. And we've been in Zoom meetings, team meetings, Google meetings. There's a bunch of different platforms. And I don't know about you, but I've used probably a dozen different video platforms over the past year in meeting with different people. And Zoom fatigue is real. When you're trying to be camera ready and you're trying to be interactive and you're trying to come off well and be engaged in meetings, when you're on video and sometimes for hours and hours on end, it can be really hard. I've had days where I'm literally in meetings, in Zoom video meetings for 8 hours, and it is rough. I really hate it, actually. I would hate to be in any meetings for 8 hours straight, but being in-person meetings is different than being in Zoom meetings for a variety of reasons. So as she revisits the tips for virtual presence in those meetings, I think it's important because virtual meetings are here to stay. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. I think we are going to continue to leverage them. Even when people are in person, there will still be people joining via virtual meeting options. And they're just so darn convenient that I think we'll continue to do a lot of virtual meetings. So how do we do them effectively? And she's going to go back and explore her initial conversation back in the early stages of the pandemic with a virtual presence expert. And I think it's worth us all considering how those tips apply to us today and what we might be able to do to up our game in terms of our visual presence and engagement in virtual meetings.
I decided to check back in with Rachel. Let's see what she has to say 1 year later.
The wildest thing is that we were all collectively thrown into this virtual world, like simultaneously. As we found, right, there's this skills gap, and that's both the technology awareness of the platforms we're using, and then also what we can do with our physicality.
Why does virtual presence still really matter like a year into this?
When everything aligns to send an impression of confidence and professionalism, it also sets you up to be more energized, more focused, more articulate. Conversely, if they're off, they really do detract from your audience's impression of you from the get-go.
Fine, I get it. We shouldn't slouch and slurp. We should care about virtual presence. Got it. What has changed since last March and what hasn't?
The thing that's most amazing to me in the segment that we did, I think it was like a week into the stay-at-home order here in the US, a lot of what we said was very much on point.
We were actually right a year ago. So here's a quick recap. You want to show your physicality. So that means being about 3 feet away from the camera so people can see most of you and your gestures. You want to come across as human. Not a robot. You want to be fully engaged in a meeting, be on camera, but turn your selfie view off. I love this tip. This way you're not kind of distracted the whole time sort of glancing at yourself, and instead you're fully focused on everyone else in the meeting. Lastly, if you have a few moments before your call, do some physical anchoring exercises to refresh your body and mind.
And then reach up to the sky with our hands, open them to the side. How wide and how much space can you take up? And now we're gonna do tiny little circles with our palms.
Now that we have the physicality down, time for the technology. Okay, these might seem super obvious, but let's go through them. Consider this a virtual presence checkup for you and also for me. Lay it on me, Rachel.
So as we go back and think about the tips that they were discussing a week into the stay-at-home order back last March in 2020, those tips all resonate, and they're just as applicable today as they were then. And in fact, they may be even more applicable now because we find ourselves in so many stinking Zoom meetings and team meetings. These virtual meetings are so pervasive now that if we want to be effective and get through the noise of all these meetings and the Zoom fatigue, I think it's even more important that we really come off well and that we portray ourselves in a really professional manner. So certainly virtual presence still matters. It's worth us all reflecting on. And in the upcoming clips, they're going to share more about what we should be doing and how we should be checking ourselves in terms of our virtual presence, whether we're working from home or doing virtual meetings even from the office. I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, Bluer Than Indigo Leadership: The Journey of Becoming a Truly Remarkable Leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There's no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of our problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations.
Rachel, be honest. What do you think of my setup on this call?
So I think your setup is decent. I think there are a couple of things.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
A couple of things. Right now, we're getting a little bit more negative space than we need between the top of your head and the outer limit of that screen. You see less of me, and you see less of my gestures.
Okay, so yes.
By adjusting that, right, so now I see more of Christine. And then the other thing is that because you have a window, we're getting like an orb-like presence in your frame, which means that the sharpness of you is minimized.
So in that clip, I'm running out to go grab my ring light from across the room. And then Rachel has a huge one, which I super love. But you can also use natural light, which is what I have here. I'm not using a ring light right now, and you can see me just fine.
From a lighting perspective, it's much improved. It's easier for me to see your humanity.
Is it working? I know that there are big fans of virtual backgrounds out there, but Rachel recommends against them and going real.
Right, if the goal is to connect human to human, like let's be real and let's not add these layers of complexity that really, they just add more distraction.
With that advice, if you need to use a virtual background for whatever reason, make sure you're in front of a plain, flat, solid background.
So let's talk background. When we're in virtual meetings, it's really tempting to just set up anywhere and then put up one of those cheesy virtual backgrounds. And while they're not bad, and if you have like craziness going on in your house and you have no choice but to just set up at the kitchen table and put in headphones, and you have kids running around and stuff, then yeah, it's probably preferable to have a virtual background up. But if at all possible, find yourself in a place where you can have some solitude, where you can focus, and where you can have a nice physical background set up that frames you well, that allows those who are in the meeting with you to see a good portion of your body, not just your head, but that they can actually see your body language and your hand gestures and your facial expressions. To set that all up with an actual physical background is definitely preferable. Virtual backgrounds can be a little bit distracting. And there's kind of this halo effect as it goes around your body as the technology is trying to match the virtual background with your face, that you do see that, and it becomes a little bit distracting. Focusing on that good background with good lighting, so you have uh, the light shining on your face, and that will really help you to come across better. Now, of course, we also don't want to be looking at our own picture on the screen, and we want to be looking into the camera as much as possible to give the impression of eye contact. And that can be difficult, but we can train ourselves to do it, especially if we turn off our selfie view of the camera. And so we don't have to be distracted by the way we look. We can just focus on the people on the screen, the people that we're interacting with.
Okay, let's talk about those times when you really need to be off camera during a meeting. I typically go into meetings with my camera on and I like to see everybody, but once in a while there's life is happening and for whatever reason, I just don't really want my camera on, but I'm still engaged. What do I do if someone calls me out on it or they, joke about it? It's like, I don't want to deal with this. How do you address that?
I would just pop into the chat like, hey, everyone, it's great to be here. I just wanted to let you know for this meeting, I'm going to keep my camera off. It immediately makes the implicit explicit, right? So name it and claim it. No one's going to be wondering, oh, well, is Christine in the car right now? Like, did she go somewhere else and she's, with a different background? And it's a waste of everyone's time.
Sometimes we really do need to have our camera off. Now, I will say, whenever possible, have your camera on so that you can interact. And it is different. It is meaningful to be able to have the visual cues and the body language, the eye contact, even though it's virtual, the hand gestures. Having all of those elements with your video on is much preferable. People will just engage with you more, and you'll be more impactful in the comments that you make and the insights that you share, and the involvement and the collaboration that you're a part of in that meeting. But, of course, it's not always possible. And so if it's not possible, just sure that you explain, and it can be very simple. Right at the very beginning, turn on your camera, say hi to everyone, say, hey, today in this meeting, I'm not going to have my camera on because I don't want it to be distracting, and let it go. And that can be all you need to say, whether it's verbally to them or you can throw it over in the chat, just helping people to understand that. Then they know that you're not actively trying to disengage from the meeting, especially if the norm at your organization is that most people have their cameras on and you're like the only person with your camera off. That obviously can cause problems. But nobody's going to care if you just explain why you need to do that in the first place. So just be straightforward, be upfront, share that with them, and then you can be fine. Again, whenever possible, keep your camera on so that you can engage. But if it's going to be a problem, if it's going to be distracting for whatever reason, just let them know and then move forward in a positive way.
Man, I really miss the office. And seeing that time capsule from a year ago, that brought a lot of feelings back,
So I was one of the last people in the office. I cleaned up everything, made sure nothing was going to be infested with raccoons by the time we got back. Leaving the office was like packing up for a trip to the moon.
Sometimes I do feel like I'm alone on the moon in my space, in my apartment. But hey, those guys on the moon, they had to figure it out.
Voice check, please.
We'd like it to come left about 5 degrees, over.
Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent?
Yes, indeed.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
I miss the office too. I think we're all tired of this situation. And I have to admit, I like the flexibility of virtual work. I do like being at home more. But as I've said in other episodes, I've always worked virtually quite a bit. Usually anywhere between half to even 3/4 time, I've worked virtually for the better part of a decade or more. And so virtual work isn't new to me, and I definitely like the flexibility of it. But I do miss going into the office. In this past year, where I've gone into the office some, but for the most part, I've just been at home, and I miss those interactions with my colleagues. I miss interactions with my students in person, and I'm really looking forward to having that chance to interact with them face to face again, and hopefully soon. And I'll still continue to work virtually quite a bit, anywhere from a quarter, half to even 3/4 of the time, depending on the week. But being able to be in person will be really nice. All of that said, virtual meetings aren't going away anytime soon, and virtual work isn't going away. People are going to either continue 100% virtual or in some kind of hybrid format, probably indefinitely moving into the future, because there's just so many benefits to it, to productivity, to cost savings, and to many other facets. And so that's going to be here to stay, I think, and we're going to continue with virtual meetings. So let's make sure that we take stock of how we're doing in our virtual meetings and our virtual presence, and let's recommit to making sure that our virtual presence is solid and that we're conveying the right kind of message, so that we can have a good perception coming from the other end as people are interacting with us. If we want to be effective in our collaborations, if we want to continue to be innovative, if we want to have meaningful relationships with our colleagues, then we need to focus on our visual presence. And they laid out some pretty good tips here in this short HBR video and in this podcast episode that hopefully you'll carefully consider and take into account, and maybe even set a few goals on how you can improve your virtual presence moving into the future. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. As always, I hope you can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day, and I hope you have a great week. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.